Next up, we want to take a look at adding some audio, some sound effects to our game environment. Right now, it's a pretty quiet environment. When we shoot the bullets and things like that, we don't really have any laser sounds or explosions going. So we're going to go ahead and add some of the audio files that we generated. And we can see we've got them right up here. We can select them in the project panel. And on the preview, you can play through them, see how they sound, make sure that they are labeled and sound the way they're supposed to. And make sure they're working properly, and then we can go into our scene file again. We can check out, we've got our asteroids, we've got our player character, and we've got our bullet, and on each one of these we want to attach some kind of sound component so that we can play these audio files. So we're going to start off by just looking at our player character first. And in here you can see that we have no audio components on this. We could actually just add audio components, and we will in a minute, to some of these objects to the actual script file and then pull those in. For us though, we're going to start off with one of the built-in components. We'll go into our component, to our audio source, and let's just add an audio source to this object. Now it says losing prefab. That's because we're just adding a component that's by not having our actual main prefab object selected. So when we do that, we can simply convert it back over in just a minute. We've got our audio source right here. We can load in our audio clip. So let's go ahead and load in our audio clip. We'll say we're going to do a laser one. So this way we can control the laser with the player. And in here we've got a number of different options. We've got muting it, bypass effects, we've got play on awake. Now this one's pretty important for us because what happens if we were simply to play this right now, the second it started, it shot the laser, it played the laser sound, which sort of sounds random because we haven't actually done anything. And it's just playing it because the second you start the game, it's going to play that. The second that object is created, it's going to play that sound. So let's go ahead and uncheck this one. We don't want that one right now. We could loop it, but we don't want it to loop. We simply just want the one shot, and it's done. We've got additional properties for volume and pitch and 3D sounds, etc. And we're not going to use those. We're going to keep this very simple and straightforward. We simply just want to play an audio file when we when we actually press on the keyboard. So with the file loaded up, let's go back to our script for our player. We're going to look over here on the player script. And we want to be able to play this audio sound when we push the spacebar down. We're actually shooting the weapon. So we've got our creating our bullet right here where we say, okay, if we're pushing the spacebar, then let's create our bullet object and shoot it. So this is a good spot right here to actually add our audio file. So if we go into our API and we say, okay, we need something audio. The one that we want to look for is something that says an audio source. So we find our audio source class and we look into it. We've got a lot of different variables for our volume, for our pitch, for time, for loading in clips. And then we've got some really good functions in here, and just straightforward. We've got one that just plays an audio file right there. So let's look at this function. And in here we can see that it's pretty straightforward. The function simply has one argument for delay so that we can pause before we actually play the audio sound. And we've got an example down here below it. Nice and straightforward, simply audio dot play, and then fill in with our argument. So let's do that. Let's just go up to our bullet. Right after we create this bullet, let's go in and just do audio dot play, open, close. And this should do just what we want. When it creates it, it's going to play that audio file for us. So we've saved it. We'll go back into our game. We'll hit play. There we go. And every time we press on the keyboard, we get our audio sound of the laser firing. And if you're not hearing it on the video, we're not capturing from the computer. So once you set it up and put it that way, you'll hear some audio coming out of your machine. Okay, that gets us set up for actually shooting the bullet. Now when we actually hit these objects, we don't have any kind of explosion sound or anything yet. So we need to be able to create an explosion sound and have that play out. So we could attach it to, the asteroid, or we could go ahead and just attach it to our bullet, which is a nice spot to put it since it's actually hitting something. And we could even do multiple checks so that if the bullet hits, here we're doing a check for the asteroid. If it hits the asteroid, it'll play a certain sound. If it hits, let's say, a metal ship, it'll play a different sound. So it's a way to break up what types of sounds get played. So on ours, though, we want some sort of explosion sound. We hit that asteroid and we want to have it go kaboom. So we're going to go in here. We see that we're resetting the position for our enemy. That means we're moving it back up, and we're also checking for if we've got an explosion loaded, and then we're creating that explosion. So let's add our audio right in here. Now if we do just like we did before, let's just say audio dot play. We'll save that one, and let's go into our bullet prefab and to our audio. We're going to add our audio source. We'll load up our explosion audio file, and we're going to take off the play on awake because we want to wait till it actually hits the object. We have the trigger event, it is an asteroid, and then play the sound. Now with that set up, let's go ahead and try it and see what happens. We may not quite get the effect we expect. So we're shooting, we're hitting, but we're not really hearing an audio effect. We got like a little bit of an effect out of the very first object that we shot and that we hit, but it's not actually playing it. Now why is it not completely playing out the audio file? Because we are destroying this game object, and when we destroy this game object, we are destroying the audio file and everything else with it, so it's not having an opportunity to actually play all the way through. So we go, well, what do we do? There's got to be a way to actually play that file, but let it play all the way out. Now we could make let's say a child of the object, and then we could detach the child, play the audio file, and leave it hanging. Or, before we try to dig in and do it on our own, we should check through our different functions and see if we've got something that sounds like it might get us what we want. We've got one that says play one shot. Let's take a look at that one. It's going to play one shot. It plays the audio clip if we load one, and a volume scale. So again, it's just playing the one shot. It's not going to be playing it all the way through, and it doesn't clean itself up. Now the other one we have down here is play clip at point. So let's take a peek at that one. On this one, the function says that we're going to be loading in the audio clip and also a position and a volume if we want. So this plays the clip at a position, and it's automatically cleaning up the audio source after it's finished playing. So this way, the audio is going to continue to play even though we're getting rid of the bullet object inside of the game. So this sounds just right for what we want to do. So we're going to go back in. We're going to change this up. We still got our audio, which is good. Instead of play, we're looking at play clip at point. Okay, and what are we filling in on the inside? We're going to have to load an audio file. So the audio clip, we'll go ahead and say this is just going to be our FX sound. And then where is the location? The location is the location of this object, the bullet object. So we're going to be saying our transform position. Do we need to adjust the volume control? Not really. We'll leave it at the default. So let's save that. Now we're going to have to create our variable. We placed one that says FX sounds. Let's go back up to the top, and in the inspector variables, we'll set it up so that we can load up an audio file. Now what are we loading up? We're loading up an audio clip. So we've got game object, transform, float, and another one of these variables is audio clip, and that allows us to attach an audio file to it. Load an audio file. There we go. Let's go back over. We can check out our bullet, and we've got our FX sound right there. We've got nothing loaded, so let's go ahead and load up our explosion right in there. So we're looking good with that one, and we've got the play on wake turned off. We've got the position set up, so let's give it a try, see what happens. There we go. So we're hitting it, we're getting our explosion, we're getting our laser fire, we're looking real good. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is, we've got it exploding when we hit a bullet, but if you notice when we actually have the object hit our player, silence. If we have our object hit our shield, we have silence. So let's go in and add some audio to our asteroids. So we'll go back over to our prefab asteroid, and on this one we want to go in and add some audio when it hits the object. So we'll check our asteroid script, and on our asteroid script we're going to go down to our on trigger event, and we're saying that if the object is the player, instantiate the explosion, and just like with our player when we were shooting, once that gets created, let's do an audio play. So we're looking good there. And then on this one, we can do the same thing. So that way if it hits the shield, we also get to play the audio file. And then on the asteroid, we simply need to load up our component. So back to our component, our audio source, our audio clip. Let's just load up our explosion sound on that one. That gets that set up. Do we want to play on awake? Nope. So let's uncheck that one. Let's go back in. We'll save that out. And we'll hit play. Now when we get hit, there we go. We get a nice little explosion sound. And when we hit our shield, we also get our explosion sound. Alright, so we're looking good so far. Now, the one thing we could do, though, is we could actually play a different audio file for when it hits the shield and play a different audio file when it hits the player. And we'll set that up next.